So General Assembly shut down our coding bootcamp and then made everyone that went sign NDAs saying that they wouldn't talk about it. So let's talk about it. If you've been watching my previous videos about my coding bootcamp experience, you don't have to be a genius to know that things haven't exactly been going well. In fact, things have just been getting worse and worse. Our teachers have essentially checked out, and our TA was replaced after being missing in action essentially for 6 straight weeks. Logged into Zoom but never participating, which honestly lost its mysterious allure pretty quickly. And most of the students in the cohort have fallen chronically behind, to the point where group projects would essentially just result in 1 or 2 students pulling the entire group along, resulting in no added value for those who are pulling the group, and no added value in terms of learning for the people who have fallen behind. Ultimately, the bootcamp has turned into somewhat of a melancholic experience of watching everything I was expecting this to be slowly degrade into a nearly valueless use of my time that would result in me not being much closer to what I wanted by the time the bootcamp finished. Obviously, this is not what I set out to do when I signed up for the bootcamp in the first place. This freaking sucks. But to be honest with you, I didn't see much choice in the matter. If you've seen my previous videos already, you know that we've had some relatively serious problems with our instructors, and even more serious problems with upper management, who instead of pursuing resolutions to these issues in a timely manner have done their best to just sweep it under the rug and have the cohort continue along in its suboptimal state. And additionally, like I mentioned, because people were so far behind, the projects would have not really involved any collaboration at all. So all of these things just started compounding and made it feel like the walls of value that a coding bootcamp was supposed to represent started just closing in on me. So I cut the cord. That's right, you were looking at a college degree-less coding bootcamp dropout. Aren't you proud of me? So I made this decision for myself, and what happened after I did that? Well, naturally, the coding bootcamp went on, and all the students graduated with great projects, and they're all moving on with interviews now. Just kidding. Literally everybody in the bootcamp dropped the cohort as well, within about a week of me dropping. It was insane. I wasn't in any way calling for anybody else to do this, and I'm not under the impression that they did it because I did it. It was just crazy timing. But after that many people had dropped, there were literally as many students as there were teachers in our coding bootcamp cohort. This was obviously not the plan the General Assembly had in mind, so once this was the case, they made the fiscally responsible decision of shutting down the cohort altogether. You heard that correctly. My entire General Assembly coding bootcamp cohort got shut down by General Assembly themselves. Now for myself, I knew that I had made the right decision when I chose to drop, but at this point, honestly, I just started to kind of feel bad about the whole situation. I felt bad that I had ever had the idea that going to a coding bootcamp was my ticket into tech. I felt like I'd been sold a promise that not only wasn't delivered, but should have never been believed or put forward in the first place. And even more so, I felt bad for my classmates. Over half of the students in my cohort are parents, myself included. These people are giving up their nights and weekends to attend this cohort, and they just straight up didn't get what they were looking for out of it, or what was promised by the people who were claiming to deliver what they were looking to get out of it. And they weren't looking for a free ticket. They were looking for an extremely rigorous approach to learning a large amount of material in a relatively short amount of time to make them relevant in the marketplace. And even that, bare minimum, they just didn't get. These are really nice people. These are very intelligent people. I believe in them, and I feel like they got screwed by General Assembly. But that's enough sad shit. Let me tell you about General Assembly's refund policy. So General Assembly has a 14-day refund policy, meaning when you sign up for the cohort, you have 14 days to change your mind and get a full refund, 100% of what you paid. After that, you can still withdraw and get some of your money back, but you don't get back the money for the time spent in class. So if you spent a month in your cohort and decided to back out, you get a full refund minus the equivalent amount for the time spent at GA. This rule applies for up to 40% of the duration of the class. After that, you don't get any refund and the whole amount is due. Obviously, this was a unique circumstance, at least it seemed that way at the time, and after the cohort was canceled, they decided to issue everybody full refunds. By this point, I had already received a bit of my refund, back to the 40% rule I mentioned earlier, I got, roughly about $3,200 of my tuition back. So about another $4,000 was due to me when they made that decision to satisfy the remainder of the refund. I was really excited to get that back, seeing as the whole experience was just so bad. But guess what? Everyone who wanted to get a full refund issued had to sign an NDA saying that they would not talk about the fact that they were ever associated with General Assembly, that they would not talk critically about the experience, and that they would really only ever reveal that they had a relationship with General Assembly if they were legally obligated to do so in a court of law. No thanks. This was an easy and extremely hard decision to make. I obviously want to get my full refund back. I have a family to support. To have General Assembly hold on to that refund of mine is way harder for me than it is beneficial to them. At the same time though, I just straight up feel like I have an obligation to be able to talk to you guys about my experience here. This really sucked, and I would not recommend it to other people generally. And I feel like I should be able to say that to friends and family and you guys. In a way, I consider myself lucky that I spent a reasonable amount of time learning to code before going to General Assembly, because I feel like at this point, if I had not spent that time learning, I would be pretty disenchanted by the idea of learning to code as a result of this experience. But I'm aware that this is at least a sort of unique experience. That's kind of the sketchy thing about this whole situation, is that we don't know how often this has happened. How many hundreds of people have gone to General Assembly or another coding bootcamp and have had this terrible experience only to have to sign an NDA saying that they wouldn't talk about it? It makes me feel like the reviews for General Assembly and other coding bootcamps might be pretty badly skewed in the positive direction, because people are literally obligated legally to not talk about their experience honestly. Ultimately, I don't want to sound hypercritical of this situation, and I'm not making this video to make anybody feel bad for me or any weird thing like that. I have no incentive for you to have sympathy for me. I think given the circumstances, I am supposed to be talking about my experience. I feel like making this video may make some of you second guess just blindly going into a coding bootcamp experience, even though I wouldn't say I went in blind. This was just kind of an anomaly. But ultimately, you need to understand that learning to code and getting into tech is up to you. If you're looking at a coding bootcamp and thinking this is my ticket into tech, wow, a 6-month bootcamp, a 3-month bootcamp, 12 weeks, and I can get into a 6-figure job. If it wasn't already obvious with the current market that we're in, it's just not the case that you are going to have a guaranteed ticket into the industry just because you attend a coding bootcamp. Ultimately, your education is your responsibility, and there's not much that you can do to hire out the responsibility of learning the fundamentals of programming if you want a long-term sustained career and a competent set of skills. So on the off chance that any of you feel bad for me, don't. I will be fine. I have a lot of learning to do. I'm well aware of that. And this was just a crappy situation that I got into on accident. And I've learned a lot from it about doing my due diligence, looking into a company as thoroughly as I possibly can before associating with them. And over the past couple of weeks, I've learned an even more valuable lesson, which is that the things about programming that never change are the most important things to learn in order to create a sustainable career. So if you attend a coding bootcamp that's teaching you the hottest new tech stack, that's going to be great for making like immediate relevance for yourself in a market. But if you want a long-term sustained career, it's extremely important to spend what feels like way too much time making sure that you understand the fundamentals of a given programming language and of programming paradigms in general, so that you can create a long-term sustained career. So here I am. I'm out about $4,000 to be able to talk about this experience with no certificate or a completion of a bootcamp, no college degree, and nearly back to where I was 6 months ago. So now what? Well, it's back to learning, obviously. I was fortunate enough to land a junior position for a small marketing firm while I was in bootcamp, so I have that leg up, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be as a developer in terms of my skill set. I feel like I'm lacking a lot of the fundamentals that it requires to be a really well-rounded developer, and I need to get those fundamentals. That's the bottom line. So I need to find a better path, but that is a topic for another video.